Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 7-Minute English Insights. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Daniel. Today we're talking about something that probably feels a little too familiar. Have you ever finished work, sat down to relax, and then suddenly remembered an email you forgot to answer?
Oh, absolutely. And the worst part is, sometimes nobody even expects an immediate reply. Yet somehow we still feel like we should respond.
Exactly. A few nights ago, I was watching a movie. Everything was fine until my phone lit up with a work notification. I didn't even open it, but somehow my brain had already gone back to work.
If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. Today's topic is something millions of people experience every day. Why is it so hard to switch off after work?
Actually, something like this happened to me just last week. I got home around 6 in the evening, changed into comfortable clothes, and started cooking dinner. Everything felt peaceful. Then my phone vibrated. It wasn't even an urgent message, just a colleague asking a simple question about tomorrow's meeting. I answered in less than 2 minutes, but strangely, after that, I couldn't stop thinking about work for the rest of the evening.
I completely understand. It's amazing how one tiny notification can change your entire mindset. You may leave the office physically, but mentally, you're still sitting at your desk.
Exactly. And I don't think it's because people love working all the time. I think our brains have become trained to stay alert. Every notification feels like it might require immediate attention.
That naturally brings us to another question. If work is always just one notification away, have smartphones blurred the line between work and personal life?
Personally, I'd say yes. Technology has made communication incredibly efficient. We can solve problems faster, collaborate across different time zones, and stay connected wherever we are. But convenience often comes with a hidden cost.
That's true. Years ago, leaving work usually meant leaving the workplace. Today, your office fits inside your pocket. Emails, messaging apps, calendar reminders, video calls, they're always within reach.
And because of that, working hours have become much less predictable. Nobody officially says you have to reply immediately, yet many people still feel that they should.
It's interesting because researchers often describe this as the expectation of constant availability. Even if your employer doesn't demand it, the culture itself encourages us to stay connected. And over time, that expectation becomes internal. We begin putting pressure on ourselves.
Which leads us to something even more fascinating. If nobody is forcing us, why do so many people feel guilty when they're not working?
That's probably the hardest question of today's discussion. I think many societies celebrate productivity. We're constantly surrounded by messages telling us to work harder, improve ourselves, and stay ahead. Those ideas aren't necessarily bad, but when they become extreme, resting starts to feel irresponsible.
I agree. Sometimes I catch myself relaxing on a Sunday afternoon and then suddenly thinking, shouldn't I be learning something? Shouldn't I be answering emails? Shouldn't I be doing something useful?
Exactly. It's almost as if doing nothing requires an explanation. But here's the irony. Rest isn't the opposite of productivity. Rest is actually what allows productivity to continue.
That's a really important distinction. Without proper recovery, concentration declines, creativity suffers, decision-making becomes weaker. Ironically, working longer doesn't always mean producing better results.
So perhaps the real question isn't simply how much we work. Maybe we should ask, what actually helps us relax?
For me, it's walking. Not exercising, not listening to podcasts, just walking, without checking my phone every few minutes. It sounds simple, but it's surprisingly effective.
I like that. For me, reading fiction works really well. Unlike reading news articles or work documents, a novel pulls my attention into another world. It's one of the few activities where I completely lose track of time.
I've also started putting my phone in another room before going to bed. At first, it felt uncomfortable. I kept wondering if I was missing something important. But after a week or two, I realized very few things were actually urgent.
That's a great example. Sometimes relaxation isn't about adding something new, it's about removing unnecessary distractions. Creating small boundaries can make a surprisingly big difference.
Which brings us to our final question. Is achieving a healthy work-life balance actually possible? Or is it simply an ideal that sounds good in theory?
Personally, I don't think balance means giving equal time to every part of life. Life isn't perfectly symmetrical. Some weeks demand more attention at work. Other times, family or health naturally becomes the priority.
That's a refreshing perspective. Maybe balance isn't about dividing our hours equally. Maybe it's about being fully present wherever we are. If we're working, we focus on work. If we're having dinner with family, we focus on family, instead of trying to do everything at once.
Exactly. Because multitasking often creates the illusion of productivity. In reality, it usually divides our attention rather than improving it. Being mentally present may be more valuable than simply being physically available.
And perhaps that's the lesson many of us need to remember. Our value isn't measured by how quickly we reply to messages, nor is our success determined by how busy we appear. Sometimes the healthiest decision is simply to close the laptop, silence the notifications, and allow ourselves to rest without guilt.
So, before we finish today's episode, we'd like to leave you with one question. When was the last time you spent an entire evening without checking anything related to work? If you can't remember, perhaps that's something worth reflecting on.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do smartphones make it harder for you to disconnect? What helps you genuinely relax after a busy day? Share your experience in the comments below.
Thank you so much for spending these few minutes with us. We hope today's conversation gave you not only some useful English vocabulary, but also something meaningful to think about. And thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more content like this.
And before you head off, we'd really appreciate it if you could give this video a like and turn on notifications so you'll always know when a new episode is released.